Hey, what's up, everyone? It's State of Soccer, and today we're back for another World Cup preview. I'm very excited about this one because this is a team that I really don't know much about in current day form, but I'll say going back to three World Cups, 2006, 2010, and the 2014 World Cup, we've matched up with Ghana three separate times, and all three matches have been very dramatic. So for today, I want to hear a little bit about this squad, what they're going to bring to the party in November in Qatar. And joining me today, I have Africans. How's it going, man?
It's going great, Brian. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, and like you said, Ghana and U.S. are like two star-crossed lovers that every World Cup, they're just happen to cross paths and something interesting happens. But yeah, we'll get into that when we start talking.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit more about your channel and what you do day to day.
Oh, yeah, no problem. So we do primarily Canadian and Ghana and African content, really more so Ghana and stuff. Right now, for example, we're doing a series on potential duels that African teams can call up. We're starting with Ghana because easier for them to research. We do that, but then we cover Canadian content as well on the men, women's, and the youth side. So it's Afrikaans because we can't be African if we don't cover one or the other. So that's kind of the whole idea with it.
Very cool. And I'll put Africans description as well as his channel profile below, links to that so you guys can check it out. So let's get started here, and I want to kind of qualify the entire video. So this is not from the point of view of a U.S. soccer fan. This is just educating everyone on this Ghana national team. So with that, let's talk about the World Cup history of Ghana, and we'll date back to their first appearance if you want to start there.
Yeah, no problem. So Ghana first made the World Cup in 2006. They were always considered a quality African side, but they were just never able to get to the World Cup. In 2006, they made it in the group with the Czech Republic, Italy, and the U.S. And they were able to finish second in their group that year, making it out of the group stage, beating the U.S., and the winner goes on in second place. And then went on to lose to Brazil in the round of 16, which actually rewatched that game. And the amount of shots we put off target in that game was frustrating. Like, Brazil played well and they deserved the win, but the amount of shots Ghana missed, it was just like, oh, okay. And that actually, low-key, that is actually my favorite Ghanaian team out of the three that made the World Cup. I know everyone knows the 2010. Yeah, and I'll explain later. But so that was our first chance. So second World Cup was 2010, the South African one, the only successful African team at that World Cup. We don't like to measure or bring it up to other African countries, but, you know, we bring it up from time to time. That World Cup, we were in a group with Australia, Serbia, as well as Germany. We finished second in that group as well, beat Serbia, tied Australia, then lost to Germany. Went to the round of 16, where we faced, again, the U.S., and again, another 2-1 win, extra time, Landon Donovan. And those first two matchups, if you look at the box score, the games went the same way. Number 23 from 2-1, number 23 from Ghana scores first. There's a questionable penalty that's in the game, and then a great open individual run goal that seals it and gets it going. In the first game, that's what happened. Dramani scores. You have then, how did I just forget his name? Clint Dempsey scores for the U.S. And then the penalty where Stephen Appiah puts it away, that's 2006. 2010, you have Kevin Prince Boateng, who's 23, Landon Donovan penalty, questionable. They didn't have VAR. I think it was all ball. I will say that till my day, but hey, it's okay. And then Asamoah Gyan with a great individual effort off a clearance ball from Andre Ayew, 2-1. That's the famous Luis Suarez penalty game where then we miss and then it's done. So that happens. 2014, the U.S. is in our group, and there's an interesting trend. So you beat the U.S., then your next game, you're out of the World Cup. So I'm excited, and then we open with the U.S. I'm like, oh, no, this isn't good.
This isn't good,
and 2 minutes in, Dempsey scores again. Andre Ayew gets the goal that ties it up, but then goes. And I was talking to my brothers about this. That game, I think Ghana had a terrible first 5 and a terrible last 10. But the rest of the game, they played well. But that was the tournament for Tim Howard for the States. And, I mean, he was on his head with the saves he made. They defended well, but they couldn't get the result. And then a draw against Germany and then a loss to Portugal. Famously, that 2014 is also they have to fly the money in to pay the players won. So that was the black mark within the program. And then weren't able to qualify in 2018. And then able to come back and qualify this year for the World Cup in Qatar, which we're very excited about.
Can we talk about the story of flying the money in? I've never heard of that. Is that?
It's man, like, duh. It's, and I'll put it in simple ways without going into the details. That whole thing was just essentially the federation had made promises,
okay,
and they hadn't kept them, and it turned into like and yes, some players have had that black mark on them. Kevin Prince has had that mark against him since then. Suli Montari's had that against him. But it's when sometimes you're dealing with federations and they just aren't able to really, they say something, but then they don't follow through with it. And that becomes an issue in terms of like, that's how you're seeing. And that really affects you when you're dealing with not only locally grown players, but players who are diaspora based, so foreign based coming in. You have to maintain that consistency, and if you don't, that's there. I tend to be always more pro players than a federation because I've seen some whack things happen in federations. So I always tend to side with the players. But yeah, that was just famously John Boy is in the hotel holding his stack of money because he finally was paid, and then the own goal goes in off of him against Portugal. I was just like, this will be a terrible end. Not
the best look overall for the federation, but now it's been quite some time. So 2018 they don't qualify. Ghana doesn't qualify, and now we're back for 2022. And what type of squad do we have here in 2022 for Ghana?
You almost have to look at it in two conversations. You have the squad that qualifies, and then the squad that goes to the World Cup. Okay. And you have to look at it that way. So if we look at the squad that qualifies, they did the job. And if you want to watch great federation soap operas, what happened to Ghana was just, honestly, you're shaking your head and thinking, and we made it somehow. So the very Sparks Notes version of it, as I say this to date myself. So Ghana had a coach in World Cup qualifier, CK O'Connor, and they weren't doing as well as they could have been in qualifiers. They had dropped the game to South Africa in their group. So then they fired that coach, and then they brought in Milos Rajovic. He was the coach in 2010 who took him on the deep run. And that coach with his staff, they took the core of 2006, and then they took the core of basically the 2009 U20 team that had won the FIFA World Cup for U20s, and they melded those two together and created a hybrid of experience and we're young and we don't know better. So they brought him in, and he was able to get the squad. They won their last few games. Controversial penalty against South Africa when they go to the African Cup of Nations. Okay. And there they have the worst showing in the country's history. They leave the tournament with 1 point, one draw. Yeah. And afterwards, the coach says, now important, the assistant coach, Otto Addo, who played in 2006 and coaches at Dortmund, he couldn't come. Dortmund wouldn't release him for it. So the coach, Milos, says in the press conference, I didn't come here to win the African Cup of Nations. I came here to win the World Cup, to get to the World Cup. Okay. Now, he's not wrong in saying that, but you can't say that.
You can't say that,
and you cannot say that. So there's uproar. He is gone. And then chaos ensues. The government then decides we are going to find a coach because the GFA, the Ghana Football Association, they don't feel well with it. Ministry of Sports. So they go on a quest to find their coach. The Ghana Football Association says, we're going to find a coach. We're going to go to Otto. So you have two parties who are going in different spots trying to get them.
The government and the federation, you're saying right now.
They're doing two different things and trying to get a coach for the team. And it's funny to watch it because I'm like, the government, like imagine if, for example, darkest timeline, U.S. doesn't qualify are they getting fourth place here? Yeah, and then Joe Biden steps in and says, nah, I don't trust you, USF. We're going to go to Leeds and try to talk to Jesse Marsh and get him coach. And the USSF is like, nah, man, we're going to go to somewhere else and get this coach. That was happening. You're just like, honestly, something's going to happen.
If that was happening here, though, everyone would be Team Marsh.
For
sure. US, but
think of
I see what you're saying.
Optics. Yeah,
the optics aren't good. It's bad,
exactly. Yeah. So they ultimately, the government is like Chris Hughton. who was a coach, had some Ghanaian descent who was in Great Britain at the time. They call him. They want him to come in and be the coach. The federation goes and gets Otto Addo, and they want him to be the coach.
Yeah.
They finally meet and get to a compromise. Addo will coach for the 2 games against Nigeria, and then they'll reevaluate afterwards. Now, Otto Addo is famous in Ghana because in 2014, he came up with a game plan to go against Germany. That was his game plan, where they drew 2-2. They really should have been up 3-1. There were some questionable decisions by players, and they end that game with a draw. And if they win that game, you're going to Portugal in a different mindset versus winning by X amount of goals. So Addo puts in a strategy which basically neutralizes, on paper, Ghana was the inferior team. On the pitch, Nigeria, to me, didn't look comfortable watching both games. And it's an interesting rivalry when you look. They are rivals. They are bitter rivals as US and Mexico are. Yeah. But like, if you look at at the score sheet, it's like there have been more draws than Nigerian wins than Ghana. It's a weird matchup. Weird.
Yeah.
But Ghana's had more of the upper hand, but Nigeria's had good squads. Don't get me wrong. Before you get a bunch of Nigerian hate in the chat, it's like, guys, you guys have good squads. Awesome, man, it's good. So they get the 1-1 away draw, which on away goals gets them to the World Cup. So that squad in itself, to circle back to the question, that squad, I think, if the World Cup was happening in July, like it normally does, I think you could arguably say they are the second worst team, maybe the third worst team at the World Cup. There's no doubt that's a conversation. I think I've seen that iteration of the squad beat Qatar 5-1. So to me, so that's how they are. Because the World Cup is in November, the question of duels, and we'll get into like the squad and who could be on the squad, that has opened the door for not only new players to come in, but also for those players to have a time period to actually build cohesion and chemistry.
That's my next question. So that's perfect. So let's talk about cohesion, chemistry, dual nationals. We're now like 200 days away or whatever it is. Not that I'm counting. Yes. And I have to get through every single nation every week, so I am counting. But like, we're about 200 days away from, I believe that's what it is, until this World Cup, which is very exciting. The overall team chemistry, dual nationals, the coaching situation. How do you see it shaking up? And ultimately, do you think this team will be ready to compete in November? Let's just say compete like Ghana teams have competed in the World Cup in the past.
So have to make the round of 16 our year a disappointment. Yeah. Okay. Correct. So let's break this down. First, in terms of players that they could have in chemistry, the thing that works for Ghana is that they have African Cup of Nation qualifiers coming. So they have games that matter. The same way that in CONCACAF you have Nations Leagues that is happening, so you can build cohesiveness, get the team playing. So they have that when they can bring in duels. Now, there's been a lot of dual national players that Ghanaians have been excited about maybe having into the team. Apparently, the federation just said yes, and other things have happened with that. The federation and players haven't had the best relationship, but from what I've been hearing and what people are saying around that, the team in charge of the football right now have done a good job to build those bridges and mend some of those bridges where players who were hesitant are now more likely to go. So you have the big name that most Ghanaians are excited about is Callum Hudson-Odoi. He's the right winger at Chelsea. He can't play for Ghana until the World Cup because of eligibility rules. He's already played for England twice, and the last time he played was in November. So the 3-year rule, he played in November of 19. So he wouldn't be able to play until the World Cup. So you're not going to see Callum Hudson-Odoi playing for Ghana probably till the World Cup. I think of all the ones, he's the one that we're pretty sure is coming because he hasn't taken any ones. That's possible.
Would you think would he walk right into the starting 11, or do you think he would ultimately kind of be a guy coming off the bench in this World Cup, considering he hasn't really played with the team?
I think you could see him walk right into the team. I think there are players, and what some of these duels can do is they can properly slot players into roles that best suit them, right? I always like to use like the US example. Look, if you have Tyler Adams or Kellen Acosta, Yes, Acosta can play as a CDM, but you'd rather play Acosta for like 30, 20, 30, 40 minutes if you have to, or you'd rather play Tyler Adams the whole time. Having that ability allows you to push some of the players that are filling in roles a little bit lower down the depth chart, and that goes through. So against Nigeria, Ghanaians were excited to see Felix Afena-Gyan, who was a striker. He's playing at Roma on the bench, but he's getting some minutes. Him coming in has been great, but he's 19. So playing against Nigeria, he looked 19. He had moments where he looked like, I see the promise, and then other moments it's like, no, you're 19, I can see it. He's one striker that we're excited about. Then you had Eddie Nketiah, who's allegedly got his paperwork. He's on the bench at Arsenal. So that's another striker. And then the big striker name that we're actually waiting on are the two Williams brothers from Atletico Bilbao. And that's Iñaki Williams and Nico Williams. Iñaki is a striker/winger. Nico, who's the younger brother, is a winger. And they both have played Spanish youth, and Iñaki played for the Spanish national team, but they haven't played in a while. So they could one-time switch, and it's looking like they will be able to switch as well.
When would these switches occur?
That properly slots your...
The switches for the Williams.
Everyone except for Hudson-Odoi. Everyone except for Hudson-Odoi can switch whenever. So if their paperwork is set, they could be called. There's actually some reports for some defenders, for example, are eligible and are on provisional lists and should be starting to play for some of the AFCON qualifiers, which is actually what you want to do here. And then there's some friendlies coming in. So on the strikers, those are the players that are there. In defense, I think the key player, and I think he's the most important player to get, is Mohamed Salisu, who plays at Southampton. He's a center back, one of the best good defenders. He's had some rough times in the Prem, but having him, joining him with a center back duo of Daniel Amarte, who plays at Leicester City, and then Alexander Djiku, who plays at Strasbourg in Ligue 1. Having a back three, what we saw Otto do against Nigeria was he went to a back three in those moments of the game. So having three center backs who can properly defend, I think that will do wonders, and then filling the depth afterwards would be key. So I think there's players along, and apparently everyone is willing to come in. There's opportunity in this squad, and I think that's exciting. Now the question will be, can they get the chemistry to play well and then kind of work well on the pitch?
Interesting. So like you were saying, now I can kind of paint the picture here. There's two Ghana teams that we could see. The current team, which did not do well at the African Cup of Nations, who might be one of the poorest Ghana teams. If you were to bring in these dual nationals, you're setting yourself. It sounds like a very potent attack. Honestly, ultimately, it sounds really good. Now, the matchups that you're facing in Group H, let's be honest. There's some top quality teams as far as Portugal goes, but teams that you are familiar with. You know, Portugal from 2014, Portugal team that some are saying could be not even the dark horse, a team that could win the World Cup. You have South Korea, which is a nation and a team that I don't really have much knowledge on. I'm really looking forward to doing that episode in the future. And then you have a Uruguay squad who is kind of inconsistent, but at the same time, it's Uruguay. You have a history with Uruguay as well. What are you looking at?
Us? History? No. We're friends there. Luis can come by the crib anytime.
This is exciting, right? Like this is going to be Group H is a very exciting group. I'm a little jealous because from a fan perspective, you're seeing some top players. It's going to be fun to watch. There's stars on every one of those teams. What are your thoughts? If you let's focus on the team. If Ghana can get these dual nationals to commit, get the paperwork sorted, players like Hudson-Odoi can come in. Where do you think you stack up in Group H?
So this is something that I've said and I've had to convince some people of, and some people will still look at me kind of funny. Group H is the only group in this World Cup where other than Group A, where you tell me any two teams from that group come out and I won't be surprised. I believe that much in Ghana. I believe that much in their coach because the way that they prepared for, you can look at the Germany game at the 2014. Yes, 8 years ago doesn't matter today, but you saw how that group was prepared. You saw how they were prepared against Nigeria and how they were able to defend well, taking good challenges. They were able to get much out of the players that they brought. Now, if you add that quality, now again, when you add new pieces to a team, the chemistry can either build or you spoil the whole pot. That's
Yeah.
always a risk. But Group H is just, I feel there's a lot of quality teams. Ghana, it won't be their ranking and how they played won't be who they were at the World Cup. It's not going to be who they are. So any two teams in that group, you tell me, I won't be surprised. So if you say Portugal and South Korea make it out, I'll be like, yeah, cool. If you say Uruguay and Ghana make it out of the group, to me, I'll be like, yeah, okay. That's the only group I can really, I feel, other than maybe Group A, I can look at and say, no, definitely those two are coming through. No, any two can come through and it wouldn't surprise me. So I think Ghana has a chance just because they aren't the Ghana of past, right?
Mhm.
But they still have formidable talent and they have a coach who can get them ready for any opponent. Um, and I think that gives me hope in this team. And I'm encouraged by what he's been able to do in those moments. Now it's going to come down to getting the pieces together and seeing how it goes. But I feel that Ghana could, I'm not going to say they're going to either top the group or finish last, but they can, anywhere in the group that they finish will not surprise me.
Now, what matches does Ghana have scheduled going into this World Cup at right now? What's it looking like, friendly wise or tournament wise?
So they are playing African Cup of Nations qualifier matches,
Yep.
so that
Okay.
they can use that for friendlies. In June, they're participating in the Keurig Cup, which is a 4-team tournament with Japan, Tunisia, and Chile. They open up against Japan, so it's basically a 2v2. If you win your game, you play in the final. If you lose, you play in the third place matchup. So
Sure.
Ghana plays Japan first, which is good prep for maybe playing a team like Korea if they might feel a good technical team like that. Now, ideally, you'd want them to play Chile just because you get a little bit of South
Uruguay.
American flavor into that. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not guaranteed. But that's happening from June 10th to the 14th. So Ghana's being able to get that set up. I'm actually pretty excited about them doing that. So that's what they have. And then they have cup qualifiers coming through. I know there's talk. They just had a meeting with the Iranian sports minister was like, come train in Iran, please. Please come. And it was just like, okay. Okay.
Now,
but like, so, yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Okay, so like it could work, but like I think Ghana is definitely an interesting team to play because I'm not sure how distinctly of a style that you can say this will prepare us for Team X, right? It's not like, for example, if you look at North America, it's not like Morocco saying we're playing Canada, let's play the US, or Iran saying we're playing the US, let's get a friendly against Canada. You can't really prep for them. There are pieces and players that you can look out for, but you haven't seen that cohesive. So they are the wild card of this World Cup because you won't have seen them together in a cohesiveness to really say what type of team can we use to prepare for them.
Okay, you're saying Ghana's the wild card.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and I totally agree that could ultimately play in your favor here for Group H and for the entirety of the World Cup. And let's talk about kind of your total predictions here. We'll leave it at that, a blank slate. What do you think? What do you expect now if Ghana has its best team come November?
See, there's two things that we have to take into account. It's not only having a best team, it's also having a team that's in form, which comes back to the whole thing of.
Let's talk both squads. If you have the squad right now, currently, and then
so the squad that qualified, I'd say their ceiling is third in their group, maybe. If their best squad that they can get, and I think you also have to take into account it's in November, so it's mid-season, so players can be in form, right? And it's hard to evaluate teams in going to this World Cup because we're not looking at them as how they're ending now. We're looking at them how they're starting the season. So if a player can be on fire, scorching hot to start the season, that changes how you look at the squad, and that can change it. Or you could have a solid team right now, and then once you get to November, everyone's out of form. So taking that into consideration, that's something that every team has to worry about. But I think for this team, this Ghana team with their best players, I think their ceiling is like anywhere top two if they bring their best team.
Okay.
It will, yeah, and I think that's just because, like I said earlier, any two teams from this group can come out, and it wouldn't surprise me. Would it be shocked if Ghana finished first in this group? No. Would I be shocked they finished last in this group? No. There's a storyline that's built in for everything there. So I think they could. Is it likely? Yeah, that's another conversation. But if you ask me what their ceiling is, yeah, sure. First in their group.
If Ghana lands these dual nationals, I would like to have you back on in the fall so we can kind of reassess. I think there might need to be a part 2 of this episode to kind of reevaluate. And that's the toughest thing right now with these episodes I've been doing is predicting so far in advance, right?
Yeah.
And so we might have to do a part 2 in the fall if all of a sudden Ghana is landing all these dual nationals from top leagues. It's interesting.
Definitely. And like the other key thing is injury. I mean, US Miles Robinson out, not able to play, right? And I mentioned earlier, my favorite Ghana team at the World Cup was the 2016, because that's when you had Suli Muntari, who's played at all the Milans. You had Stephen Appiah, who bounced from Italy to Turkey, played well. Then you had arguably the best Ghanaian player in my generation I've seen, Michael Essien, who you could argue for a stretch was considered one of the best box-to-boxes in the Prem, if not the world. He played in one World Cup in that 3 World Cup stretch, 2006. That's all he got to play with. And it's amazing to think, okay, that's the depth of the team was good, but arguably your best player, he played in one World Cup out of 3, right? And that's like and so as excited as I am, I guess it's my whole thing with World Cups. Any generation, you can be excited for them coming next. Like if they're doing this, and like I know there's U.S. fans here and other people who watch it, but like U.S. fans especially, you can be excited about that group coming up. There's no doubt about it. But where they are now doesn't guarantee where they're going to be in the next 4 years, right?
Exactly.
And that could mean other players come in. That could also mean that it crashes and burns, right? So like in those moments, you got to take advantage of those moments, because next World Cup isn't guaranteed. Because at that next World Cup, yes, you may have that generation come through, but for all you know, next thing you know, Jamaica gets their program together and they get all the duels, and it's like, oh, well, now we're not a shoo-in like we used to be anymore. So like that, every time I look at World Cups, I look at that 2016 for Ghana. I'm like, that was my favorite one, because that was the best version I could have seen of them, injury free, and we only got one Michael Essien World Cup. So that's where injuries this year starting the season are going to be interesting to watch, with the season starting summer to fall, who stays healthy, but also who's on form starting off as well.
That's a great reminder, because I see a lot of comments on Twitter, some of my YouTube videos I've posted. Well, I'm interested to see, I'll talk US here, how the US squad does in this World Cup, but I'm really interested in how they do in 2026. You have to take it 4 years at a time, as ridiculous as that sounds. Like, I'm going to ask you one question that I might have to use as a social clip, because I think this will drum up a lot of controversy. You mentioned kind of the USA rivalry with Mexico. We know that Nigeria is not in the World Cup this time around. I do want to hear your summary, or what you think, your idea of the Ghana-Nigeria rivalry, what it means to Ghana, and just kind of talk a little bit more about that, the flavor of the rivalry.
The rivalry is one where I say, if you look on paper, sometimes it doesn't matter, because the opposite will happen, right? Nigeria had a stretch where they had maybe 5 in the early 2000s. They had a stretch where they had a 5 or 6 game unbeaten streak against Ghana. And this is at the beginning of that, one of the greatest generations of Ghanaian football that we've had, right? But then if you look, I think the record is 19-12-7. I think that's the overall record. I could be wrong on that, but I know there are more draws than there are Nigerian wins, which makes no sense, because you know of more Nigerian players. You know, JJ Okocha, Moses. There are a lot of Nigerian players who have played well, but for whatever reason, when it comes to tournaments, other than the 96 Olympics, they just haven't been able to put it together and get that run. and I think Nigerians definitely deserve it. But I mean, I will root for African countries all the time, even if Nigeria is the only one there. But I mean, if they lose, I'm not going to be upset about it, you know. So, and this is the toned down version of it. Like if you caught me at a cookout, like it's a different conversation. It's a different conversation, but we keeping it for YouTube here, so we're keeping it
Very well. Africans, I really enjoyed having you on the show today. I think that was really interesting. I learned a lot that I'm going to take with me now in conversations about Ghana. You're always welcome on the channel anytime.
Hey, I'll be around. Not a problem.
So that does it for this episode of State of Soccer. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button. And I look forward to previewing Senegal next week. And we'll keep this train moving until Qatar in November. Take care, guys.